So I want to dive into protecting women and protecting other marginalized groups. And you had a very huge win recently in California with the Flash Act. Can you tell us a bit about that and what work went into getting that passed?
Yes, it's a multi-year process, but we ramped up quite a bit in the last year. The Flash Act is a representation of our work we call cyber flashing, which is sending illicit lewd pics, but many people in the room will know there's another term for that. And it is something that's harmful, but of all the things that happen to women in the trauma and abuse space, it's not the worst. But the reason why we're looking at it and picking on it is it's so easy. It's so a no-brainer. Like, how can there not be any laws like against this? And then we just point to it. Like, if you can't do that, no wonder you can't do these other long list of items. So that work actually started for us in our home state of Texas. Our headquarters are in Texas. People will be quite surprised that that's where that started. And we were doing surveys, and we found through the surveys of just our customer base, which tend to be a lot of women. Bumble is a women-first dating app, so women have to make the first move, which is quite different than other apps, but it was just to make sure that you didn't feel like you were attacked and kind of harassed online. The surveys showed that people were getting a lot of these, and I think the initial thought was like, oh, we'll just report that to law enforcement, et cetera. And during that process, it's when we found that there was no mechanism at all, and it wasn't even illegal to do that, but it's illegal in real life. So across the 50 states and globally, because we work globally on this, it is illegal to flash someone. There's laws against it, and actually criminal laws against it. But on the internet, it's wild, wild west. Like, the laws for the internet hadn't actually caught up with anything in real life. So we started doing some work state by state, and we passed in Virginia actually earlier this year. So we were with some of our advocates there, including National Women's Political Caucus and others, trying to get that bill passed and join other women who were leading that work. And we were like, we're in, right? When I saw that it didn't pass and how that happened, I was like, we're in there, right? So we helped pass that in the summer. And then we had been working on California for about 2 years. And big state, largest by population. And it was really amazing to get that phone call from the governor's office that they're like, we're signing it.
Seems like such a no-brainer, but the work, that sounds impressive. I wanted to just take a moment, though, to celebrate that win. And this is what was in the New York Times the day after. So it says, "Don't be a bleep. Show them something they actually want to see, like respect." So when I first saw this, when I was looking, I laughed. But it's really crazy that the state of our laws have not kept up with the internet, and that's something that I really see in my practice is the wild, wild west of what companies can do with our data, and just to think that these unwanted pictures, where if it was done out on the street, would be criminal, and there's no recourse. So I really hope that these 3 states were the first, and 47 more to go. Switching gears just a little bit, can you talk to us about your mentors? I know that I've had a lot of really great mentors so far in my career that have shaped my trajectory. Have you had anyone that really stands out for you?
Yeah, I've had several, and so that's why I won't say names, because I wouldn't want to leave people out. But I'll share that there was a common thing. When I look at like the women in my family, and my mom particularly, I would say it wasn't. We don't have backgrounds that are similar or whatnot, but it was in that sense of feeling like you deserve to have a place at the table, and that you deserve to be part of what was happening in the world, no matter what your economic circumstance was, et cetera. So that was a big, strong belief in our family, whether we had means or not. The other thing that I saw, and I thought it was especially neat, even when you're working in the halls of the White House, et cetera, there are some men and women, because I've had most of my mentors have been men because of where I've worked. I usually was the only woman, but also women. I think the thing that stood out to me is those ones who treated you as an equal, and not just took your ideas and channeled them up for their own win, but brought you along on your own win and presented you. I really remember seen it in action in a room and remember being taken aback by it and noting it. And then I through my career, you notice the people who carry someone with them on their own idea or their own, win. And then you can tell the people who are just like, give me that and I'll run with it. I'll brief you later, right? And there was just something about that collaboration in that kind of way that I felt that is like a real true sense of like role modeling, because it's not just giving you advice, right? It's like really being it, right? What they say, being about it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that those are the type of moments that stand out. I've seen them in combat, right? I've seen them on the floor of the Senate. I've seen them in meetings, and I've even seen them in like among mean girls in New York City or Beverly Hills.
So you touched on how you sort of straddle the line pre-living our lives on internet versus now. Do you think that that mixed perspective brings a unique capability or unique power to your role at Bumble, because you have that, life exists offline too perspective?
I think very much so. Like I feel like I'm in the middle of that group that can connect on both sides.
You know how to work the internet, but you don't live. You're not on it all the time.
Yeah. I'm very comfortable in both worlds. So I think it is interesting, and I also know the pain points of both. Right. Again, I'm a national security person, so I really shouldn't talk about dating. But one thing that I thought about is if you're in a place where you don't feel you belong, just imagine like being forced to like date, friend, and marry in that community, right? I mean that was the world before you had like other ways to meet people. Like if you could not afford, if you didn't have the economic means to be somewhere else or move somewhere else, like where you're planted is where you grow. And I know that's a saying and people like that idea, but for those of us who don't, like I don't want to grow just where my seed planted in the dirt, right? I want to be on a plane or somewhere else. And so I think about that aspect of the ability to make friends on your own terms and where you want to, and not just only these are the people you get to choose from, especially if they're not treating you well, right? I think about the mental health aspects of that, of like finding your people, who you marry, who you don't marry, and if you marry at all, are really, really big decisions for folks. And I think who you're friends with, as we know, like they say, look around who you're surrounded with. That's who that's who you will be. I think that's important. I like that aspect of having a choice in it, and I think the internet does that. But also too, it also can bring harm, and I think you have to have your feet in both places to make sure you're measured on both sides. You don't want some of the things that we've seen, some of the work that you work on, happening, but you also want people to be able to like live bigger lives than they're able to.